Hey guys, it's Marta. It's almost the end of May and all of my rhododendrons are blooming. I wanted to show you all of the types that I have in my garden and tell you what are the best places to grow them, what can you do so they bloom every year. Let's begin. Rhododendrons are extremely popular in Poland. When I started gardening and I went to the garden center, rhododendrons were, from the flowering plants, were the main ones in the garden center. I was also fascinated by Japanese gardens, so I was like, yes, I need some of them in my garden. And the rhododendrons are one of the oldest plants that I have here, and I absolutely love them. So next to me you will see the rhododendron PHLOX that just stopped blooming, but you've seen it in the previous videos. It is a very compact rhododendron. This one is 16 years old and I have two of them, and they look like azaleas, but they are not azaleas. So it is rhododendron. In my language, in Polish, we have different names for azaleas and we have a different one for rhododendron, and they are all called rhododendrons in Polish. So in English it's different. We have rhododendrons and then the smaller ones are called azaleas. So I have three big rhododendrons in my garden. One is called Eskimo, another one is FURNIVAL'S daughter, and this one is PHLOX. But most of the beautiful flowers I get from azaleas. And here is my favorite one. It's called Nancy Dipple. This azalea, Nancy Dipple, is pretty young. It's 6 years old. One day I was at garden center and I looked at it and I was in awe because it looks so perfect. The flowers are such a pretty, delicate pastel pink, and it looked like I don't know. It's like a cloud of flowers. I took four of them, took it on my cart, and all of the people that were passing me, they were asking, where did you get it? And in the queue that we were standing, everyone was having this beautiful plant. It's been blooming, I brought it to the garden and it's been blooming ever since. All of the rhododendrons are blooming in my garden in the middle of May and they bloom for approximately 3 weeks. So what is the difference between azaleas and the big rhododendrons with really big flowers? First of all, the big rhododendrons are evergreen and they stay green all winter. Azaleas, depending on the type, might stay with leaves or might lose some of its leaves depending on how cold the winter is. When we get a very cold winter, so in Poland it means we can get minus 20 degrees, it can lose almost all leaves. But now for the last few years we've had pretty mild winters, so minus 10, sometimes maybe minus 15, and it stays pretty green through all the winter. On my left I have another azalea, it's called Kermashina. So this is Kermashina. The pink is really deep, very, very strong, and I absolutely love it. All of my azaleas, as you can see, they are not huge because I trim them back after flowering, and I keep them this size every year, and I always cut back all the new leaves that are growing because I want them to be compact, because behind them I have roses and I think it looks better. So during the year they stay nice and green and they are a nice hedge before the roses, and then the roses bloom, so I don't want them to grow very big. So after the flowering I just prune them back really hard. So next to my azalea you can see the creeping phlox. I've been telling you about it in the previous video, but it wasn't in full bloom. Now you can see that you cannot see the green. It's like a big pink below, and I just love it. And it was just two tiny plants several years ago that I planted just in the gravel. I never give it any fertilizer. I never water it. Just this what comes from the clouds. That's all. And it's growing in the gravel and it's loving these conditions. So if you're looking for a plant for a dry place and a very, very sunny space, this is it. Creeping phlox. Looks beautiful now. It will bloom for 3 weeks and then it will just stay as a clump of green, and it looks also pretty. What is the best place to grow rhododendrons? First of all, you need a sheltered space, especially if the plant is young. Then doubled shade is best. For me, I think they get around 7 hours of sunlight, so it's fine for them. They never get burned, they look very, very good. And if you push your rhododendrons to very deep shade, they will not bloom as well as they do if they have 6 or 7 hours of sunlight or maybe doubled shade, so they are not in a very dark place. The most important thing when growing rhododendron is that they get acidic soil. Our soil in our garden is slightly acidic. I think it's around pH 6, but pH 5 to 6 will be perfect for them. If you live in a place where you have alkaline soil, it is not a good idea to grow rhododendrons. You can try in pots, you can get dedicated soils that are meant for the rhododendrons, and you can use that. And besides the acidic soil, you really need to look on the watering. If you get drought or you will not water your rhododendrons for a longer time, they will get problems with nutrition and with blooming. But they also don't like standing in water, so they need a place where the soil is well drained, but it's moist. So you have to look for that, and they don't like to be deeply mulched. I've seen it on my rhododendron that was having problem with fungus, and I read somewhere that it doesn't like to be heavy mulched. You can get ericaceous mulch that is light and it's fine, but if you get like a very like a compacted mulch and it's very, very wet, it will get problems with fungus. So double shade, well drained but moist place with enough of light, not very deep shade, acidic soil, and not too much of the mulch. And then, of course, fertilizing. I fertilize my rhododendrons in spring with a fertilizer that is dedicated for those plants, and they are thriving. One thing I need to remember is that in the middle of summer they cannot get dry, and that's very important because in the middle of summer they are forming their flowers. So when it's summer, I always go at least once a week and I water them with a hose, even though we have a watering system in the garden. But sometimes when it's very, very hot, and in our summers we can get, in July we can get 30-35 degrees Celsius, so at least once a week I go and I water them very, very deeply. Now let's go to the other part of the garden. I have my rhododendron FURNIVAL'S daughter. I love it. It's the oldest plant in my garden. Let's go. So here it is, my love, my oldest plant. We've had so many adventures together. When I brought it with a brother. So the brother died and this one lived, and it didn't have a nice beginning of its life. I was a new gardener and I didn't know anything about rhododendrons, and it had a lot of problems. Sometimes when you buy a plant in a gardening center, you get it and it's pumped with fertilizer, and you put it in your poor soil and it's not the happiest. So for the first 2 years it was fighting with fungus. It had problems during the winter. We had very harsh winters. I remember the first 2 years we had -29. So it was really, it was so poor. But it managed. I tried a lot of things. I tried mycorrhiza, I tried reading about it and learning about rhododendrons, and now we are very happy together. The one thing I changed, it was not mulching it very deeply, and that really helped with the fungus. And now I just need to be very careful with the summer and the watering of this plant. Last year we went on a holiday and it was very dry here. And this year it doesn't have that many flowers that it did in the 2 previous years. So I know it happened because of that, because it was dry, it was very hot, and some of the flowers did not form. That's the problem. But next year, hopefully, I will be on top of my game and will get as many flowers as usual. If you look closely at the leaves, you will see that it's covered with something. This week we've been having the amount of pine pollen that I've never seen in my life. Everything in the garden is green and yellow, everything on the house, everything on the terrace, all of the plants are covered in this pollen. We had a huge rain a few days ago, but it wasn't enough to wash it off, so now it looks like it's covered in dust. So I'm hoping for another really huge rain that it will just wash it away. After the rhododendrons stop blooming and the flowers will look, you know, ugly and spent, it's very good to take the flower off. I will show you on this one how to do it. For in the name of science. So when this flower will be spent, then we'll just take it in between our two fingers and we just snap it like this, and you take it off, and then the new leaves will form and the plant will not take the energy to form the seeds, and you'll just will be left with a leaf like that, and then the new leaves will form on that. And this one, if you want it, it is possible to use it in an arrangement. Some of the arrangements I do it like that I put it in a very shallow bowl of water and I put few of the rhododendron flowers and they look like lilies, so it looks really pretty. Not this one because it is burned, but like this. You can put it in a shallow bowl and it looks very beautiful. Let's go around this border. I will show you how it looks like from the other side. And there are other azaleas. So behind me you can see one of my favorite borders in spring. I absolutely love it and I've been tweaking it for a few years. In the back we can see the rhododendron that we've seen just a moment ago, FURNIVAL'S daughter. Just before it we have tree peony that is pink, beautiful, and we didn't get a huge rain, so the flowers are not messed up. Usually we get like a huge rain and they look like they are drowned princesses with beautiful big dresses that have been like dripped in rain. Then we have Dicentra. I've been talking about it in a video about the 3 first perennials that bloom in my garden, and the Dicentra is really electric lime green color with those pink flowers, looks beautiful. Then just before the Dicentra you can see Azaleas, but I don't know the name of it. It was called, when I bought it, it was called Kermeshina Pink, but it looks different than the Kermeshina Pink, so it's a different one. But it's also beautiful and I absolutely love it. I've had a few years that I had problems with flowers on them, but I've been pruning them pretty hard after blooming, and I've been adding some fertilizer for those types of plants, and it's been fine for the last 3 years, so I'm hoping the problems are gone. And then I have a lot of roses here. I have catmint and I have fairy rose. They will bloom later in the year, and also some hydrangeas, but that will happen in the other part of the year. Let me know if you have any rhododendrons in your garden. If so, what are they called? How are you growing them? If you're having any problems with them, or maybe you have some great successes and you want to share what you do with them, so it is that way. Let me know in the comments. Next week we'll talk about alliums. I started with 3 alliums 16 years ago, and now I think I don't know how many I've got in the garden, but I love them so much, and I think I've got all of them, all of the types in the garden. They are so beautiful. We'll talk about it next week. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one with all of my alliums. Take it with